So a few people have asked me to show more specific stuff about how my Hermes setup is actually working. So the goal of this one is to be more hands-on, to actually use the tool, and you see I'm screen sharing here and you can see the setup that I'm using. Hopefully you can pick up a couple of tips and tricks, but realistically I'm hoping this video is more of the mindset that I have. But overall, I feel like you can understand the thought process that I have as I'm using this tool and incorporating it into my life. So you can see that I'm just using the normal Telegram web app and logging in. I also have it set up on my mobile phone too. I set up a new Telegram group for this demo, so it's nice and thin and it doesn't have any of the extra stuff that's going to distract me in this demo. I also was able to set it up with a way that I probably would do it from scratch again. Since I was building it up the first time, I built it up one way, and now I'm able to actually change it out and do it exactly how I like. So I set this one up with a Hermes agent called Jackie Jones, and Jackie is the assistant that's going to be helping to do all of this stuff. So one of the things I did is Telegram has, they call them topics, so I ended up creating a new topic for this thing that I do, which uses this Wispr Flow app. So I have on my cell phone the Wispr Flow app. It's really cool. Basically, it's set up to, you speak into it, and it listens to all the words that you say, it cuts out all the filler words, it makes it a little bit more coherent, but it still is exactly what you said, and then it spits out the text on the other side. So I use that quite a bit, and what I've set this particular agent up to do, this topic of the Wispr here, is set up to make it so every single time that I send a message into this channel, basically it just does this Wispr dictation workflow that I set up. So first I just use the phone app to dictate to it. Then after it listens to all of the things that I say, it shapes it, it cleans it up, it makes it a little bit more coherent, because chain of thought talking doesn't always have the most coherentness to the ideas. So this cleans up all of the data that I've said, and then finally it adds some ideas on top of it. So in addition to all of the things that I share, sometimes it will see a direction that I'm going and point out interesting connections in all of these things. Then after it's done, it'll automatically save it to a markdown file locally, and then I can pop into the general channel and I can just reference that dictation, and all of a sudden all of that information is right there. So for something like this video, instead of me just brainstorming in a document, I can actually just take some time to think about what do I want this video to be. I can talk into my phone, and then I can get a really nice outline of what this video actually looks like. So let me do that now. I have a couple of ideas. So I'll take my phone, I'm gonna just speak chain of thought, and then I'll come back and we can see some of the ideas that I had and what direction this video could go in. Alright, so I'm back. I just dictated into my phone for, I want to say, maybe 20 minutes, just blabbering about some of the various use cases that I could show you. Some good ideas, some bad ideas, but just a lot of talking. So now I have this in, the text-to-speech converted it all to text. I'm hitting send, and now you can see that the message that I sent from my phone just has this long wall of text of just like some of the ideas that I had about what this video could be about. So it's going to churn through these. Let's take a look to see what it actually comes up with. First thing that it did is, this was the text that I had. By having this Wispr dictation, it has clearly a lot of these ideas that I had, these different use cases, and all of these thoughts that I had. And this is really what makes what I'm saying not just be generic AI sludge. This is really well thought out stuff, but it's super messy input, right? I just have these random ideas and it just comes through. But what it ends up doing is it shapes the idea. So now this is the exact idea that I spoke about, but it is done in a way that is just now easy to see I was talking about. There's the next section, which is when I paste in the dictation. That's kind of like where we are now in this video. And then it talks about some of these upcoming steps that we're going to have in the future. So now you can see that basically if you just scroll through it, you can see all of the ideas that actually came through with what I said. The other section that it has here is this riff section, which I really like, where it doesn't just take the ideas that I told it, it basically riffs on top of what I gave it and comes up with some other ideas. So In this section, you can see that it sees that the structure of the things that I gave it was just a series of ideas of use cases, but what it really lacked was this idea of a spine, something that connected it all together. And it suggested that we come up with the strongest spine of Hermes turning messy intent, so that's like this dictation that I just spit out, into useful artifacts. That's kind of like the stuff that we're going through together, and it keeps them moving through the workflow. So I think this totally makes sense, and I think this also connects all of these use cases that I was talking about as well. So now we have the raw data of what I said, we have the structured data of what I said, so the core concepts pulled together, and then we have some additional riffing that was done on top by Hermes itself that has some pretty great ideas in there. So I read through these, I kind of understand what direction can I go in, I can see the feedback and kind of iterate as I go. And finally, the last thing that happens is it saves the full output to a file. So right now you can see that it's all in this d-003.markdown file. So I can just click this little box here, it's in my clipboard, and now I can just reference this in a future topic and just paste this in, and it will have all of that information. So now I can just drop in this little pointer to get all of the concepts that we just saw right here. And now after coming up with all of these things, as well as seeing that right now we have maybe 6 minutes of content already. If I'm looking to make a 16-minute video, I don't really have time to show you all of these use cases that I had before. So maybe we turn this into a part 1 of many parts, and I just show you how I used the Hermes setup to outline, take this input of the ideas and come up with maybe the structure of what these future videos could ultimately look like. So we just saved this into this dictation here, so I can hit the copy. Now it's in my clipboard, and now if I pop back into the general tab, I can actually start referencing using this, which has both the raw data, the shaped data, and this new layer on top. So I can basically say, hey Jackie, I came up with some ideas for the current video, but instead, let's use this to brainstorm a multi-video concept that shows how to use Hermes effectively. Use the content here and come up with the video outline and spin it up in a proof editor.ai document for us to collaborate on. So let's give this a spin. I forgot to copy and paste the dictation file, so I added that here before it wrapped up, and you can see it took maybe like a minute or two, and then it came up with this proof doc. So I set up proof. It's really easy to do. You just sign up for an account, you give it some API keys, and it hooks everything up. But now I can just click in here, and basically my Hermes agent just authored this entire document that is all of these ideas that I have specifically for this multi-video concept and the current video. So it's some ideas. Honestly, I don't know exactly what the content is because I haven't read it yet, but overall it gives me some structure of the ideas that I already talked about, and it pulls it into this file. So let me quickly read this now to see what it actually came up with. So I just read through the document that Hermes came up with, and overall I think it's super solid. I think that the concept figured out how to turn this random video idea that I started just dictating to it into this reusable series. So like instead of having just a one-off video, like the idea that we came up with together is this series where I really like this Hermes in the real world idea. So this has a couple different things in my AI operating system. I don't like too many of these, but like Hermes in the real world I think really resonates with me. So I can just like grab this and push this. And basically the promise of the series, which is like exactly what we're talking about here, is the idea that you can capture messy thoughts with dictation, raw data, raw thinking into structured artifacts, setting up some of these different loops, generating emails, doing all these things, and comes up with this multi-arc video flow. This is what we're in the process of right now. It basically understood where we were in the process. I think down below it has some suggestions that I don't really love about how we can deal with the current video, because I've honestly recorded about half of it, maybe, I don't know, something like that at this point. But then the next video could potentially be this industry analyst that I set up. So basically using this last 30 days skills to basically scan all of Reddit and all of the social media for really the exciting things that engineering leaders are actually talking about. I can do a deeper dive in a whole video about my apartment hunting and some of the product research that I've been doing. So using it as a personal scout, I think that would be a great video. Remixing things, one idea, into multi-distributable assets. Now that I have this particular dictation that Hermes has generated for me, I can remix this into all kinds of ideas. And now that I have this document too, I can basically come up with some like infographics and things like that super easily with Hermes. So that's something that's useful. Just basically how to handle browser automation. I feel like that could be a video on its own. I think overall it has a lot of really good ideas here, and I also do really like the idea of cutting some of these ideas. I had a bunch of different ideas we could show, but these don't really belong. Yeah, so this video was maybe a little more messy than what future videos ultimately would look like. I came up with this video and I just started demoing before I was able to use Hermes, but you get to see the whole process of how I started thinking through this stuff and where I ended up. So I think this gives you a start about the way that I'm using Hermes. If you are interested in some of these other topics, some of these other use cases that I'm talking about here, give me a like, subscribe to the channel, find me on Twitter, follow me there. And yeah, I appreciate you taking the time. Other thing that maybe would be super useful is if there's any Hermes tricks that you have found super useful, leave them in the comment. I'm super curious about all these like best practices and all the ways that I can make my flow more effective.